There's a rumor that David Zaslav suggested to James Gunn to make Robert Pattinson the main DCU Batman. Because ultimately, just how things are going, you get cluttered with at least two Batmen at the same time. Yeah, that could be a problem. So anyway, here we are Bounding into Comics. They have summarized it overall. They're supposed to do this, he says, a Batman has not been selected yet for the Brave and the Bold, which is begging the question, what's the holdup? The answer could be timing or delays brought on by the recent writer and actor strikes, but there may be more going on behind the scenes. So then they delve into Jeff Snyder in his newsletter, saying Zaslav is recommending, if not demanding, that Gunn incorporate Robert Pattinson into the DCU as its official Dark Knight. And Snyder asks, where does Robert Pattinson's Batman factor into this? And if he doesn't, then why the hell not? Well, I don't hold Pattinson's performance responsible for how the Batman turned out, but it wasn't that good of a movie. And by the metrics of its earnings, you would have to classify it as a failure, akin to Man of Steel and Batman vs. Superman. That those did better. I mean, even accounting for inflation, it still did. So that's a factor in it, but it wasn't a complete loss, so what's the gauge? What's the metrics? Now, granted, there's been several regimes since these three movies came about, and Zaslav comes into it, and they're already underway with Matt Reeves pursuing this further. And since then, you have The Penguin, which is an incredible series. It's excellent. It's leaps and bounds superior to the Batman film. And good Lord, if you can continue that in the movie, that's really exciting. So that level of excellence. So, and it's bringing in numbers for Max. So I'm guessing that might have changed some of the elements here. And I often wondered, could the Penguin save Batman? Certainly spruce it up a bit. And the clock's ticking. And I never could figure out, what are you going to do? Are they just going to go ahead with a second Batman movie, wrap it up, and then announce their new Batman for Brave and the Bold? And that would be it. You've got yet another new Batman. However, from the get-go, and of course, it's the cluster mess that DC keeps finding itself in. Through their own making, they keep meddling and meddling and meddling, and then, of course, after you've meddled the first time, you have to meddle again. 11th hour changes, no matter what one thinks of DCEU and Snyderverse and all that sort of stuff. It was drastically complicated by 11th hour changes and the like, and that sort of thing. Once you've decided on a direction and the film's been shot and all that, it's too late. If you got a problem with it in the script form, that's when you deal with that. But a lot of that just wasn't happening. And that's a problem. You can't fix it afterwards. Then you get these Frankenstein hodgepodge films that you see these days, and they're not going to work. And then directions all over the place. By the time you get to the Flash movie, which was became a directional change for whatever the franchise is supposed to be, and that's what it was used as the vehicle for. Well, you end up with three different approaches to that. The first one, it was going to go full woke in the female universe, and everything Batgirl and Supergirl would take over, that kind of thing. Scrap that, get Henry Cavill and Ben Affleck back. Affleck did shoot scenes for it that were cut. I don't know if Henry got to do it. He was going to be teamed up with Sasha Calle as Supergirl and all that, but all of it got scrapped. And then James Gunn's addition to it at the last minute was just, hey, let's throw George Clooney in there for a little tee-hee at the end of the movie. And then, of course, the unfinished film that it was, and then Ezra Miller's scandals. It was just, it was an impossible task at that point. However, if you were going to say that this is the movie that changes everything, which means The Flash should have been delayed till after the other films and that sort of thing. Although the plan was originally, like, especially the Shazam movie, why the costumes look different was explained that, well, that was supposed to be because of the Flash changing the universe and all that. See, at a certain point, it's too late to change things, you know? And there were scenes shot with Michael Keaton in the Aquaman film. They scrapped that, put Ben Affleck. He shot scenes in the Aquaman film. They scrapped that. So now there's no scenes in it. And so what they could have done was decide, okay, Robert Pattinson's our Batman. We're going to incorporate him in this new shared universe, and he'll do the scenes. So you got him showing up at the end of the Flash movie, and then him interacting with Aquaman and all that, so establishing that's what you were doing. Of course, this would have kept Jason Momoa on as Aquaman and all that sort of stuff. I think they really want him to become Lobo now, which is more than likely is what the case is. And that should work and all that. But nevertheless, even if you didn't deal with the Aquaman film, the Flash film, it should have been Robert Pattinson doing the cameo at the end. And there you go. Now, it was early on, this was teased and hinted at. I haven't recalled anyone saying that Zaslav is demanding it, which if he's demanding it, then it's done. Robert Pattinson's the Batman for DCU. But the thing of it was that they were saying, well, Matt Reeves wants to keep his iteration of Batman under his, in his version of it. And of course, the Batman, and now with the Penguin show, that's a world that doesn't really reflect the fantastic world of the DCU. What are you going to do? I have a news broadcast going on in the background of the Penguin episode, and there's Superman flying around in Metropolis. It's too much of a grounded iteration of it, akin to the Nolan Dark Knight movies, and that's what they did with it. So a Robert Pattinson DCU Batman would be somewhat, if not a lot, different from the Batman he played in the initial film. That's not impossible, and it's certain things of, well, there's been some shenanigans, but they don't really have a narrative flow for it because they stumbled, they pooped the bed repeatedly, and they don't have a vehicle by doing that other than, well, he's this version of Batman in this version, and he's that version of Batman in the other. I don't know how you do this because it's a bit jarring from the tone and nature of the two vehicles, franchises, what have you, for this to happen. Because it's literally you're asking Pattinson to play a different version of albeit the same character. And personality-wise, it'd be more or less the same guy, but he lives in a very different world. But that's the position they've put themselves in. If you're banking on Pattinson, you've already got him cast. And why search out for another, especially when you've got a problem here? You're going to end up, there's no way to avoid it, two Batman brands competing with one another. Unless it's like, hey, every summer you'll get a Batman movie. You'll get the Pattinson Batman and then our DCU Batman, and then they're interchangeable. And maybe that could work. I don't know. I would be impressed if they tried to pull something like that. But they canceled the Superman and Lois show because they didn't want their Supermen competing, which is a little odd because one's a TV show and the other's a film series. So but there was all this idea of solidifying and making more cohesive their shared universe and not having too much else. The idea that some rarely known DC character could be cobbled together for a film series unto itself, aside from a DC universe of superheroes and stuff. Yeah, there's plenty of stories that DC has like that could easily be adapted to a story that has nothing to do with superheroes and that sort of thing. There's all kinds of properties there for anyone to pursue and make a pitch for. But going forward, I mean, Gunn announced that well, there's got to be these Elseworlds films. I think that's just a label to slap on these leftover projects that are still somewhat alive. Well, with Joker 2, which took a number 2 and got flushed immediately, it's not looking good for those projects. However, Penguin is a great show, and I'm sure they appear to be happy with it. I guess it's doing good numbers for Max, and so they got that going for them. And so that's a bright spot for it. It's still going to be clumsy. It's not going to flow well as it could have, but the clock's running out, and their best bet is probably just say Robert Pattinson is your Batman. Stylistically, I don't know how you do it, whether you acknowledge it, because you don't want to mess up what you've already established with saying, look, up in the sky, it's a bird, it's a plane, in the middle of that approach to Batman. But once again, not necessarily everyone's fault. It's the fault of the previous regimes of messing things up so badly. But they only have so much time, and more importantly, they only have so much money. So, I think they're kind of stuck with where they are, and have to work something out. They've already taken one of Reeves' shows that was supposed to be yet another spinoff like Penguin for Max, with the Arkham Asylum series, and then that's been folded into the DCU already. Still, Matt Reeves involved with it. So, if they can make him happy and all that, and they can satisfy all involved, then maybe a deal is already underway. But it's probably their best bet. It's just the circumstances they're in, and so I wouldn't be surprised if they announced that, Robert Pattinson. And Robert Pattinson, he's reaching the age where it's believable that he could have a teenage son, which is the brave and the bold approach they wanted to do with Batman and Damian Wayne being the Batman and Robin of that story. And by the time you get to that, that could be the deal. So anyway, still, just having Pattinson show up at the end of The Flash would have been an easier nod to it. But again, it's a mess. But it's just a matter of how messy is the outcome. Still, everything hinges on Superman. Superman's got to make $1 billion at the least. I don't know. Anyway, we'll see what happens.